Hello my friends and fellow VEDSies. So between our talks about folklore and character swaps and the fact that the camp campaign is starting up for the first time in a couple of months, I've been thinking about AUs. For anybody who doesn't know, an AU, or an alternate universe, are a specific type of fandom storytelling in which the settings or events are altered in order to create new explorative works. Some of my absolute favorite fan works have come out of this genre, and so I thought it could be fun to talk about it. Thinking it over, I've come to the conclusion that all AUs fall into one of three major categories: the what if, the crossover, and what I like to call new setting, who dis. A what if AU is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Marvel has an entire show based off of the concept. You follow the canon timeline up to a certain point of variance and then explore what changes happen because of that variance. So a what if AU would be something like, what if Cedric had survived the third task, or what if Sirius had found out that Regulus had betrayed Voldemort? Yeah, I have a lot of Harry Potter examples because I tried to pick things from things that I knew people would know because I wanted people to understand, and I didn't think you would if I chose like Liberty's Kids. But yes, the point of the what if AU is usually to explore the consequences of that variant moment, which can be really big or really small or any way in between. But since it's so focused on the world building, I've noticed that most fan artists draw variant points, while most fanfic writers will do the point of variance and then the consequences of that point. Next are crossovers, which I think are also pretty self-explanatory. When characters from two different worlds collide, you have a crossover. As insane as it is, one of my personal favorite crossovers is a fic entitled Harry Potter and the Lack of Lamb Sauce, which posits that Gordon Ramsay is, in fact, a wizard. And this is what would happen if, instead of Slughorn, Gordon Ramsay became Potions Master and Half-Blood Prince. It made me cry more than once. A less wild crossover would be something like Harry and Matilda grew up in the same neighborhood and became childhood best friends, and that friendship carried on throughout their entire lives. Crossovers are really fun to deal with because you can be super detail-oriented, or you can just go wild and have a lot of fun with it. There's not a lot of rules. These are super popular in fandom because they work well as fanfics and fan art, and even content creators tend to enjoy making their own versions of crossovers. And then we have new setting who dis AUs, which, despite the very stupid name I gave them for the sake of this video, I think are very cool and intelligent and interesting. What these stories do is they take the characters and transplant them into another setting or time period or story. A lot of the most popular AUs you tend to think of when you think of an AU are from this category. This is your coffee shop AU, your high school AU, your superhero AU, your spy AU, your fairy tale AU, any time period change AU. But you don't have to make your AU some generic time period or place or genre. You can get real specific about it and plant it in another universe. So like a Harry Potter Scooby-Doo AU would see Harry, Ron, Hermione, and the others as Mystery Inc. Or you can even have a Hogwarts AU where characters who are completely unrelated to Harry Potter just go to Hogwarts and do things that have nothing to do with that story. There's so much you can do when you change the setting. Personally, I like it when a writer or artist changes their style to match whatever universe they are writing in. But that's just me. Okay. So I've rambled on about different types of AUs for a hot minute now, but what's the point? Why do we like them? Well, to explain that, let me tell you a story. For the camp campaign, we have a lot of AUs, but one of my personal favorites is one I created. It's a gangster AU, specifically an old-fashioned gangster film AU, inspired by things like Robin and the Seven Hoods and James Cagney movies. The story centers around Percy, the bastard son of one of the wealthiest men in Silesia, Ilario von Meer. Though he presents himself as an honest businessman, Ilario is actually a crime boss, and he distanced himself from his son and lover to ensure that they would never be used against him. But Parsi became fascinated with the speakeasy scene and became determined to open one of his own. He cut a deal with his father that if he could assemble his own team to do his own jobs, he would get a cut of that, and Hilario would make the deals happen. So, in his office in the basement of the dance studio for which he works his day job, Parsi makes a team. He has a thief, a muscle, a face, a driver, and himself as the brain. Then one day, he meets a new client who is to be receiving one-on-one ballroom dancing instructions with him. It's Brina Russell, the daughter of the police chief who's practically kept under lock and key. See, Chief Russell is one of the only police who isn't on somebody's payroll, and that makes his daughter an easy target. So they keep her at home as much as physically possible. But as he instructs her, Parsi realizes how this lifestyle has deeply affected Brina, and in particular how her mother has warped her sense of reality to the point where she could not make it on her own. Fond of her and sensing that Chief Russell is more reasonable than his wife, Parsi decides to take matters into his own hands and kills Patricia Russell. He isn't caught. In fact, he's not even on the police's radar. And Brina's allowed slightly more freedom, so it's worth it. But things get complicated because he starts falling for this girl, and it seems like she's reciprocating. So he confesses to his life of crime and his plans to open up a speakeasy, a place where people can just be themselves. But much to his surprise, Brina is on board. She offers her first aid training as well as the information she can gather from her father and becomes the final member of the group, as well as his girlfriend. She's an incredible asset to the team and Parsi loves her, but at the same time, he lives in fear that one day something will tear them apart. They'll get caught, or she'll get hurt, or she'll find out what he did, and it'll all be over. So that's a pretty different story to my summer camp D&D game. But what's actually true to our canon? Well, Parsi's dad is a rich businessman in Silesia named Ilario von Meer, and he and Selena did choose not to get married, in part because they didn't want Parsi growing up in the spotlight. Ilario actually does lead a double life that Parsi is starting to follow in the footsteps of, though a very different type of life. Parsi is also actually a dance instructor. That's canon. I changed the dance style, but that one is 100% based in the game. All of the party keeps their general role in the group, but without magic. And as for Parsi and Brina, no, they're not together in the game. But that relationship is integral to the campaign and to the party. They undeniably have chemistry. We as players have talked about it, and we don't think either of them are in a place where they could get together, even if they realized they were into each other. But the building blocks are there to get to this point in a story. It's still very much based in the reality of their dynamic. Because in particular, Parsi is the one who sees just how badly Brina's home life has fucked with her. He's the one she feels most comfortable going to, and therefore he gets to hear some of the existential questions that she's working through. And that has led to him having a lot of opinions about her parents, particularly her mother, who I might have mentioned before, but they did get into a fight that included her mother hitting a 16-year-old because he was saying that she did a bad job as a parent. They don't like each other. That is very canon. So really, other than aesthetics, the only thing this AU really changes is how we treat the violence. Canon is D&D and it's YA fantasy. This is Percy Jackson with swearing. So yeah, they've done murder, they've done torture, but it's a convention of the genre. We don't really think about it. But in a gangster film, violence is treated differently. It's disturbing, it's exhilarating, and it's deeply personal. And the intrigue and guilt that come from violence and betrayal in a story like that are really fun for me to explore. And that's what makes AU so cool to me. Sure, on the surface, it's just fun to see the characters you like in different circumstances and environments. But you also get to explore what really makes them them. How far can I go in this story of guilt and betrayal and violence until Percy isn't Percy anymore? Is Harry Potter still Harry Potter if he never goes to Hogwarts and he becomes a barista? How would being in a Jane Austen era Regency romance affect how your OTP interacts and gets together? These are the things that AUs let us explore, and I think that is pretty fucking cool. Alright, my friends and fellow VEDSies, I'll see you tomorrow.